Progressive.
Michael, you had some trouble putting the crib together today. What went wrong?
You know, those instructions can be tough, and, well, you saw the outcome.
Were you upset when your wife pulled you and called in the backup?
No, I mean, the baby needs a crib to sleep in, so whatever it takes.
You've got a changing table to put together next. It's got a lot of drawers. What's your comment?
You know what? We're done here.
Like it or not, sometimes you need a backup. That's why there's Progressive to protect your home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Your forecast brought to you by VTRN meteorologist Matt Ferguson.
This afternoon, the snow showers come to an end. It is chilly with temperatures holding in the 30s. Tonight, mostly cloudy and cold with lows in the upper 20s. Partly cloudy for Saturday, milder with highs in the upper 40s, then very cold as we head into Sunday. I'm VTRN meteorologist Matt Ferguson. Everyone have a great weekend.
Hi, it's Abby with the Sheeler Motor Mile, sending best wishes to all of our friends and customers during this joyous time. We encourage you to think local, be local, and buy local this holiday season. Merry Christmas from your friends at the Sheeler Motor Mile.
May your entire home be filled with holiday joy and happiness. Hi, I'm Evan Hughes, radio voice of Virginia Tech women's basketball and baseball. Everyone at the Virginia Tech Sports Network would like to sincerely wish all of our friends a wonderful holiday season. We appreciate you listening to the Virginia Tech Hokies on VTRN Sports Lynchburg.
Sushi and sake. It's a fun blend. Come experience New Yamada Forest Sushi and Sake, the same fresh sushi you've come to expect, complemented by our new Asian fusion menu, highlighting the freshest filet mignon, plus pork belly and chicken, and grilled seafood like lobster, scallop, shrimp, tuna, and lobster with an Asian flair. Your meat is grilled and prepared to perfection every time, and our crab rangoon is the perfect start to every meal. Come experience New Yamada of Forest Sushi and Sake, 205 Bristol Mill Drive, in Forest behind the Graves Mill Center.
70 million people in the U.S. have learning and thinking differences, like ADHD and dyslexia. Each has their own story. This is ours. At first, I thought it was just a phase. Then schoolwork became a struggle. Emotions got bigger, and my kids started falling behind. I felt alone, like I was lost in the dark trying to find answers. Then I learned about Understood.org, a nonprofit empowering parents and kids like us. It was like we had a light to show us the path ahead. Whenever new challenges came up, their guidance helped us figure out our next step. We still have tough days, but now we have direction. And I have the tools and resources I need to help my child thrive. No matter where you are on the path, Understood can help you keep moving forward. Visit understood.org/yourpath today.
We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings and great discounts. Now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com, when you use promo code Christmas, that's promo code Christmas at checkout, get 24% off all items at InsaneRadioDeals.com, including gift cards to the Yard on 5th Street, Downtown Cairo, Oliver's on Rivermont, and much more. 24% off all items when you use promo code Christmas at checkout now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
You're listening to WVGM AM and FM Lynchburg, now powered by ESPN Radio and streaming on the VTRN Sports app.
It's the final countdown to savings during the Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Brooks with the Farmers Bank of Appomattox, sending best wishes to all of our friends and customers during this pleasant time. We encourage you to think local, be local, and buy local this holiday season. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from your friends at Farmers Bank.
Hi, this is Bill Roth of the Virginia Tech Hokies. You know, all of us here at the Virginia Tech Sports Network want to send our heartfelt thanks and our very best holiday wishes to you and your family. We're grateful to have you as part of the Hokies community, and we appreciate you tuning in to our Tech football and basketball broadcasts right here on VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Happy holidays, everyone.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Presley. My love for animals began when I was 5 years old and found a puppy wandering alone. Growing up in a military family, pets weren't allowed, but I couldn't turn him away, and my family let me adopt him. That moment sparked a lifelong commitment to speak up for animals who can't speak for themselves. 50 plus years ago, Elvis and I supported American Humane Society because animals deserve our voice. And now, more than ever, they still do. American Humane Society saves lives and strengthens the bond between humans and animals. Each year, millions of animals end up in shelters, waiting for someone to give them a second chance. Your compassion can change a life. Please visit AmericanHumane.org to learn more. Thank you.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
There are a ton of bigger picture angles to the NASCAR lawsuit settlement between NASCAR and Michael Jordan's race team, as well as Denny Hamlin's. They co-own 2311 Racing. But there is actually a local angle to this as well that we discussed in a TrostLaw.com fast take that dropped about an hour ago from the Virginia Career Works office, which is code for the unemployment office. You can kind of look at it either way. You can go unemployed, or you can use it as a launch pad to your next step if you really care to work with the fine folks over there. But it depends on how somebody approaches and what their attitude is. But if NASCAR had have lost this lawsuit, it's not a guarantee this would have happened. But it is a possibility that NASCAR would have had to start divesting their assets, which could have included selling off NASCAR tracks. Now, when you're talking about selling off NASCAR tracks, just knowing what I know about the economic realities of certain areas, I would have put Richmond much higher because it's in a much more thriving urban area where real estate is at a premium. And therefore, you would have sold it for infinitely more, as Kenny Powers would remind us.
Dollar bills, y'all.
Than you would selling a place like Darlington, Martinsville. I'm going to presume Talladega. I know there's a lot of space. It's off the interstate, but Talladega, Alabama, having gone through there when I went from Memphis through Birmingham and then Birmingham to Atlanta back in the day when I went to school down in, to use gang signs appropriately, M-Town, Memphis, Tennessee. I lived there for 4 years. I reserve the right to do that. But you look at that particular area, that doesn't strike me as one. Like, people remember Auto Club being divested and sold off, but Auto Club is on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Obviously, real estate is at a premium there. Chicagoland on the outskirts of Chicago being resurrected, but that is the type of track that would have been very highly coveted and demanded. Martinsville, Virginia, with their high unemployment rate as it is, and the fact that a lot of people have already left the area because of the textile furniture, departure that occurred about 15, 20 years ago, from the early 2000s to the late 2000s, during that first 10 years of the 21st century. That's a big part of the reason why, but it could have still happened. And that's a big part of why NASCAR settling this lawsuit can still, I don't think they would have been breathing as heavily there in Martinsville as they would have in Richmond or in other areas. But I think we can all exhale for that particular reason. We will get into this a little bit more in about 10 minutes. Dalton Hopkins, Frontstretch.com, will join us. Meanwhile, if you have been involved in an auto accident, you can exhale, as much as that may be difficult, given the severity of the situation. The reason why is you have an ally that's on your side. TrostLaw.com or just 777-HURT to call our friends at Trost Law. They have been serving the greater Virginia area, including Lynchburg, where they're based, for
not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4.
Over 4 years, as LeBron James is always want to remind us. And we always love rubbing it in a little bit more for Trey's guy, the second greatest basketball player of all time, to the great Michael Jordan. Yes, great in many levels, and we praise him today here in the Fast Lane. Meanwhile, we step away from that to somebody who is stepping away from coaching football, once again, in the Fast 5 at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish? Because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
So, first of all, it's time to take a little detour in the Fast Lane.
Time to take a detour in the Fast Lane.
Our counting skills may be kind of ish, but they are precise whenever you go to InsaneRadioDeals.com, including entering the promo code Christmas now through Christmas Eve at checkout for 24% off the list price of every single item.
After Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the Fast Lane.
Meanwhile, stepping away or stepping down, or whatever term you wish to use. Kyle Whittingham, the Utah Utes head football coach, stepping down after 21 years as the coach. There are a couple things to note. He's the second longest tenure coach in college football. He had a fantastic run. I know they can never quite get over the hump of schools like Ohio State in the Rose Bowl and others that were well coached but just had better talent. But what he did taking over for Urban Meyer, when in a lot of cases you take over for a really successful coach and everything goes downhill. More on that in number 3. But Kyle Whittingham, to do what he did for as long a period of time as he did, proved that it wasn't just Urban Meyer. That program is in immensely better shape than it was before Kyle Whittingham took over. From being in the WAC, Mountain West, to getting the invite to the Big 12, to something that we will get to in number 4. With the reports that came out early this week, and then it was confirmed with a vote on Tuesday, Utah has agreed to a private equity deal where it is the first school, but likely going to be a trend for more, where private equity is going to be involved in college football. Here's the thing that is got to be noted about this. I am concerned not necessarily about football, but the more private equity is involved in athletic departments, the more I am concerned about that. Either football just gets split off into its own venture, or do you start to see the cutting of other athletic departments who, let's be real, their programs don't generate revenue for the school. The way that really it's football and men's basketball either make money or at least break even. But they bring additional value in terms of bringing players in, opportunities for emotional touch points and connection with the school, and obviously helping with the school mission of building these student athletes up for something that's beyond sports, because it's not the revenue generating based decision where players are committing to a school or athletes in some sports cases. So I do worry about that. And I think that's reasonable of where the boundaries are when you start to introduce private equity. If it's just for football to extract value, it doesn't bother me as much because it's already a business. And I think we're already trending towards that anyway, where private equity and other business decision makers are going to weed out the non-money makers in favor of those that do make more money. But if they start to get their tentacles into other sports, that's where I have much greater concerns about the future of college athletics. Meanwhile, speaking of stepping away, but not necessarily voluntarily,
number 3.
Sharon Moore, after he was fired for calls on Wednesday. And again, I don't necessarily think this would have escalated and gotten out of hand if it seemed like he was clearly a winning coach, because the more successful you are, the more things are often overlooked historically. Let's not be naive here. But he has since been not only detained, but now been charged after visiting the address of a female staffer and allegedly threatening to engage in a murder-suicide. Now, let's let the full justice system play its way out for Sharon Moore, but can you not think of a worse fall from grace than something like this? If these things are in fact true, and it is an if, and I think it's worth noting, but if this is true, the fall from grace will have been spectacular, because we have seen other coaches engage in immoral behavior and get second chances. I mean, again, let's call a spade here. Liberty University is the prime example with Hugh Freeze and what transpired before. And by all public accounts, things seem like they settled down with Hugh Freeze relative to what he did at Ole Miss. Granted, everyone can talk about his golfing escapades and everything that transpired there, and I've heard some other stuff off the record, but as far as stuff that's just transpired on a large public scale, you get second chances if you know how to handle this. Sharon Moore, that's the exhibit that's the disturbing part from a Sharon Moore standpoint is who's consulting this guy? Who's the agent around Sharon Moore? He doesn't scream like a Jimmy Sexton client because whenever they have mishaps, they all seem to find a way to work through it, and they all seem to be pretty well coached and how to handle that. So again, call a spade a spade. But for Sharon Moore, what's going on here? That's a big concern that I would look at overall. And I would say that's a real concern. Whereas he could have gone the Hugh Freeze route. Hey, I made a mistake. I'm going to pay my penance for it. It's going to cost me potentially my marriage. Maybe it doesn't, but I'm going to bounce back stronger. It wasn't pretty, but eventually Hugh Freeze did. And even though I don't think he'll ever get another SEC opportunity, I think he could easily be the next Billy Napier at a Group of 5 program, and there would be very legitimate reasons to think that type of setup could work. Versus Sharon Moore, who granted has not had the success and cachet as a head coach the way that Napier at JMU and Freeze at Liberty and has had before. But this is something it's really sad when you look at it in a bigger picture sense. Meanwhile, sad to some, but the reality is part of our, I don't know how many games we're carrying tomorrow. Just keep it locked to the VTR and Sports app all afternoon and evening because we have so many college football and basketball games. And TJ Wilkerson's working on the graphics. He's got a list of all of them, and I can't read his handwriting because I'm not that quick. But don't worry. It'll be up at Fastlane, Ed Lane, VTR and Sports, and TJ_Wilkerson8 on your social media platforms. One of those tomorrow night, maybe the nightcapper, the LA Bowl between Boise and Washington. That will be the last of its kind for that particular bowl game. Is this a trend going forward? Now remember, the Bahamas Bowl, pour one out for that. Bahamas Bowl. It has not technically been disbanded. It was just relocated to Frisco, Texas, and renamed, but still is a bowl game. But I don't dispute that you're going to start to see more of this when fans are going to take after their teams and players and say, if it's that important or not, why would we go? And eventually, these entities are not going to want to keep hemorrhaging money forever. I think there will still be bowl games. I think ESPN will still have a lot of them, but I think you may see a curtailing of the volume of bowl games as evidence based on this. Meanwhile, what might go in the opposite direction as far as interest is
number
one of the games you will be hearing on the VTR and Sports app tomorrow, which means you will not be part of the people watching it, is the annual Army-Navy game. 10 million potential viewers. That's what everyone is projecting could be the number. It would be a record high. Now, part of that's because they're including streaming platforms in the measurement of how these views are conducted, which I'm totally cool with. People consume TV in the same way they consume radio in multiple platforms. I mean, again, we don't split your advertising messages, whether it's on the stream or on 93.3 FM in Lynchburg for the VTR and Sports audience. And we have the same policy for our news talk stations and Rewind 1039 Lynchburg's classic hits, because we really don't care how you consume our stations. As long as you're consuming it, you're part of the audience and you'll get the same content from our partners and from those that provide the content as far as show hosts or music people. But I look at this and say, I can see that being the case because in an era where the business of sports, I don't have an issue with it. I'm always fascinated by it. But where some people turn to sports as an escape from that, I still think you're going to get more of people that want to be a part of something like this. Meanwhile, when we return here in the Fast Lane at 5:45 today, we'll get to our NFL triple header with the man who will be on the call for game one of that, Buffalo at Drake May, the former North Carolina signal caller in New England. Marvin Lewis, former NFL head coach and current Sports USA analyst. But when we return, we're going to get to as many of these questions as we have for Dalton Hopkins of Frontstretch.com, including his projections for Army-Navy. That when we return on the Fast Lane, VTR and Sports app, and 93.3 FM Lynchburg.
The Wrap Up the Year sales event is going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Drive home a new 2025 Ram 1500 and save over $13,000 off MSRP. Shop Magic City's great selection of Grand Cherokees, now discounted up to $6,300. Don't miss out on the biggest savings of the year. See us today at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details and 1526.
Hi, Danny from Gibbons Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
Have you been hit by the winter doldrums? Are you itching for a place with more than a couple hours of daylight? Start your journey to a warm weather escape with us. Scuba classes are forming right now at Aquatrek Adventures. We can have you ready for a warm, relaxing excursion to a sunny tropical destination, including our spring getaway to sunny Florida. Take the first step. Call Aquatrek Adventures on Mill Lane in Salem and visit our website at aquatrekadventures.com to sign up for the certification or your trip.
In most things, it's hard to go from ordinary to extraordinary. It's easy with your home or business. Call the Concrete Wizard and transform your place into an extraordinary space. If you're tired of looking unsightly concrete, then bring light to your old surfaces. Call the Concrete Wizard for free design consultations, free estimates, and fast professional concrete resurfacing. And visit theconcretewizard.com for ideas from other before and after photos.
Big tech is a bull in a china shop. Big tech is taking advantage of outdated federal regulations that just might put local TV and radio stations out of business. It's time to modernize Washington's restrictions on TV and radio station ownership. Text radio to 39179 and tell policymakers to let local stations compete. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Hey gang, this is Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies. Join me for Foster and Friends, Saturday 9 to 10 a.m. on VTRN Sports 93.3 FM.
Step into the fast lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the fast lane.
Tons and tons and tons of angles to what's transpired with NASCAR being adjourned as the NASCAR lawsuit they faced from 2311, Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's team, as well as Front Row Motorsports, has officially been settled. It was settled on Thursday with a joint meeting between Jim France, president, CEO of NASCAR, and Michael Jordan himself, the two faces behind this situation. So somebody who was there, somebody who can potentially exhale and is grateful enough to join us here on the fast lane, Dalton Hopkins of Frontstretch.com. Dalton, there are so many different angles to this particular situation. First of all, we hope and pray you're well and that you've had a chance to exhale. There are a lot of things that have jumped in about this. One of them is, and this was a couple of years ago, and I can't remember exactly what podcast or platform he said it on, but Bomani Jones, the ESPN commentator, made the comment that it's really weird when dealing with extremely rich and powerful people that they actually respect you more if you're willing to take them head on, including fighting them in a manner that would even go fighting to court. And is that a sentiment that we can all realize that, NASCAR at the end of this maybe has more respect, if not for the teams, at least for Michael Jordan and his team, that they finally found somebody that wasn't going to eventually kowtow, but literally was going to fight them until it became apparent that NASCAR was probably going to lose if they didn't settle the lawsuit.
Yeah, first off, I'm home today. I was not supposed to be home today. So that's how good I'm doing right now. I was supposed to be in the courtroom, actually probably walking out of the courtroom around this time. So that's great. Secondly, yeah, when it comes to respect, I don't think it was ever really, because it's Michael Jordan, right? Like, I mean, NASCAR, I think, knew the moment that this lawsuit was filed, they knew it was going to be a fight to the very end. They knew that it wasn't going to be outlasting the plaintiff financially, because Michael Jordan has more money than NASCAR. So I don't think that was ever going to be an issue. But I do think that when it comes to respect, the respect level occurred probably in the first 8 days of the trial, for sure. I don't think it really happened until they started to realize that perhaps they were really going to win the trial. So I find it very odd. I find it very, I don't know if poetic is the word, but I find it kind of interesting that they decided to settle the day after the end of Jim France's testimony. So perhaps there was some kind of sidebar or some kind of side conversation between NASCAR's lawyers and NASCAR's executives saying that there wasn't going to be a way that they were going to be able to win that case without some kind of settlement.
So my dad has an interesting analogy that he has used before on tackling real serious business projects. And a shout out to my dad. He and I have butted heads in certain areas, but to me, is spot on this analogy. There's 3 tiers of people when it comes to getting something really hard accomplished in the world of business. You've got the young and energized, but not necessarily experienced enough, and maybe don't have the full level of economic clout. Then you've got the older people who have a lot of wisdom, but maybe not the energy and desire to push for progress and change and engage in the fight. And then very rarely in cases, you have the middle ground of people that are old enough to have the wisdom, have the financial resources, and also have that level of energy to the fight. Is that what this ultimately took and that NASCAR encountered, which is the rare group that is not too young but not well resourced or too old and tired? They found someone that was in the middle, and that's what it took.
I think it came down to a team of those people that were in the middle. I mean, look at the 3 guys. I mean, you have Denny Hamlin, who is, middle aged in all intents and purposes, and he's got plenty of energy. We know about that, and he's got some level of knowledge when it comes to business. Michael Jordan, I don't think anybody's going to say he doesn't have the energy, right? And he definitely has the business savvy also. And then you have Jeffrey Kessler, who has worked, older gentleman, right? But definitely, most certainly from what I saw firsthand, that man has plenty of energy, especially when it comes to the court, especially when it comes to the business side of things as well. So I think it was a team of all those guys that were able to find a way to challenge NASCAR when it came to the trial. And then on the NASCAR side of things, you have a little bit of both ends. There wasn't really any guys in the middle. It was a collection of that, because you have at the very top and Jim France, who is an older gentleman. And then you have his lawyers, who are middle-aged, but it really did not seem like they were going to have a decent challenge against the plaintiff as the trial went on. So perhaps that's when they decided that a settlement was going to be the most positive outcome.
Dalton Hopkins, Pit Lane CPT on Twitter, Frontstretch.com, and the best is his Instagram handle. Oh no, it's Dalton, which is just absolutely fantastic. Although we say, oh yes, because we're glad to have you today in the fast lane. Dalton, there's so many other angles that we will get to unpack on this as far as NASCAR and what transpires. One of those particular angles being the idea that after the settlement, everyone seemed to be bro hugging it out. You have the image of Michael Jordan and Jim France, 2 warring sides in court, all of a sudden coming together. How much easier is it to forgive and forget when it comes to business and the fact that both parties still are in a spot where they can have a relatively decent amount of power, and they're both going to be in a good spot financially?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing to see that. We were talking about it yesterday on the Frontstretch Podcast Network. I was talking about it yesterday that I feel like this was in fact the most positive outcome that we could have had, and I think both sides agree with that. Both sides kind of saw that. They knew that really at the beginning of this lawsuit, it really didn't matter who was going to win. If there was a winner, if it reached a jury's verdict, it wasn't going to be positive in the end. Somebody was going to hurt afterwards, and the sport was going to hurt as a whole, regardless of who won. And I feel like this was the only outcome that really the sport could have seen and have a positive end to it. And I think, again, like you said, both sides are bro hugging it out, and well, maybe not bro hugging, but you get what I mean, like embracing, joking, laughing. I don't know if I could ever see Jim France bro hugging anybody, but there was some hands shaking, right? And both sides, Lawrence Buterman, Jeffrey Kessler, the attorneys from both sides, I found it was very odd. They seemed to have a very great amount of respect for one another. And it was so interesting to have 8 days of court, of trial, and just nonstop, just passion and multiple testimonies, some that brought tears in people's eyes. And there was high emotions, animosity towards both sides. And in the end, you see them smiling and joking on day 9 in the morning. So very, very odd. But at the same time, I think that's why. I think that's why we saw that kind of positive outcome, which was, or excuse me, the positive emotion. It was because of the positive outcome itself. Both sides believe that the sport is going to grow from this.
I know this is something that you, Brian Nolan, Tom Bowles, as well as Trey Lyle and Michael Massey in different orders and rotations, and Steven Stump have all covered in these Front Stretch podcasts. You guys did yeoman's work covering this court case on the Front Stretch Podcast Network. But the idea of this being so unnecessary, can I brush back on that in this sense? When you're dealing with highly influential, powerful people who for generations now, we're talking almost 100 years, have never been challenged because nobody has had the financial might to dig in for a battle and fight them, that you can say it was unnecessary to get to this point, but I'll flip it around and say it had to get to this point of going to trial, because if nobody was willing to do that and fight NASCAR on that level, they always had the precedent that they were eventually going to win, and it took someone pushing them to the brink of, okay, we're about to lose, to get NASCAR to change.
Yeah, I think that's the tragedy in all of it, right? Is because yes, even though that, and I just got done saying that this is a positive outcome, and I think the sport's going to grow. When it comes to the business model side of things, there is no doubt that there's some hurt feelings, especially when it comes to some of the team owners, Richard Childress specifically, and the NASCAR leadership as well. There's no doubt that when the season starts in February, it's going to be a little awkward if Richard Childress and Steve Phelps are in the same room, if Steve Phelps is still there. If Richard Childress is in the same room as Jim France or Steve O'Donnell or anyone else, it's going to be a little awkward, more awkward than if it was Denny Hamlin. So that is the fallout that unfortunately is going to come out of this. And I think if this trial didn't come to the point that it was at now, that never would have happened. We wouldn't have seen those text messages about a month ago that came out between all the NASCAR executives talking against SRX and Richard Childress and so on and so forth. But to your point, Ed, there is a little bit of a silver lining in the fact that it did come to this, and the fact that this battle did happen, and that maybe NASCAR got shown that it's not invincible. And you said that, it's really this billion-dollar company, this billion-dollar titan that's hasn't really been challenged on the legal side of things. Neither has Michael Jordan, I don't think. So it was, as I like to put it, I believe that this whole trial was what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And that's what we saw, the outcome. And if we didn't go to trial, I don't think the level of respect that you mentioned earlier would still be shared.
Pit Lane CPT, or Oh No, It's Dalton on Twitter and Instagram. I like the Instagram one better personally. For Frontstretch.com's Dalton Hopkins, who's with us in the fast lane discussing the end of NASCAR and in some form the return to NASCAR, although it looks like Steve Phelps may not be returning to NASCAR when you get to Daytona or Bowman Gray even. Before that, in February, Steve O'Donnell's situation is perilous as well. Are they really fall guys for this, in the sense that, I mean, look at the NFL or other sports leagues. When Roger Goodell, Adam Silver, Gary Bettman, Rob Manfred present a trophy, fans boo them, but in reality, they're just paid really well to take the fans' ire on behalf of the owners who are paying them in that spot. Did we get precedent that, while Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell may be the fall guys, they really were guys who were just paid really well to take the heat for the France family in particular?
Someone's got to do it. It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. Yeah, I don't know if I want to word it just like that, that they were like fall guys for Jim France, but There's no doubt that anybody that's going to face any kind of punishment out of this, and there probably will be, because NASCAR is going to lose money at the end of this, no matter what, at the end of the settlement. If anybody's going to take the brunt of it, it might be those executives. I don't think it's going to be Jim France. I think it'll be someone up high up, like Steve Phelps, like Steve O'Donnell, although it seems like it's going to lean a little bit towards Steve Phelps. But that's speculation, right? I think the most damning thing that came out of all of this was the email traffic, the text messages that came out between NASCAR executives, and a lot of it with disagreement with not only Jim France, but like I said, the team owners as well, and a lot of the things that really shouldn't have been said. And we can condemn the type of language that was used toward Richard Childress and people saying that Richard Childress should be flogged, and then as he's a dumb redneck, and saying that SRX is a trash series. Bad language, right? But at the same time, those are private text messages. I mean, I guarantee you, if we take a look at some of the text messages that Brian Nolan has, it'll be way worse. So, my colleague Brian Nolan, but I digress, right? I'm joking, but of course, like, that's the fallout out of all of this, is that someone's gonna have to take the fall, like you said, and unfortunately, it's probably gonna be someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we get it. Those text messages, particularly when they're directed at certain NFL analysts who may or may not have played with their left hand up. When they were a different name team, or the Steelers, or for a college that may be affiliated with Lane Kiffin. If you get our drift on who this analyst might be, there might be a history there. But I digress, Dalton. Speaking of, by the way, NASCAR and the SRX.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
What was more absurd in this NASCAR trial that came out? The idea that they view the SRX as a threat, which to me is like the NFL and its media partners, everybody, viewing like the XFL or the UFL, these spring football leagues, as a threat. Like, really? You're worried about that? How insecure are you? Or the gold codes idea, which is the height of like entrepreneurial arrogance, where it's like, hey, we're going to be able to pass off bad drivers as opposed to good drivers because nobody will notice the difference. If it's Dalton, Brian, Trey, Ed, Michael, as opposed to William Byron, Denny Hamlin, and regular drivers that are out there, which one was more absurd? The gold codes concept in NASCAR, that they thought they could get away with it, or the fact that they viewed SRX, some schlep upstart organization, as some kind of threat when it was more like a spring football league?
SRX, and it's not even close. The gold codes, as for those of you who don't know, the gold codes was like the equivalent of the NFL commissioner just taking ownership of all the franchises, of all of the teams, and basically just kind of playing with his toys in his front yard or something. But as I understand, and as was presented to me about the gold codes, was that was purely a contingency plan. They never really truly began planning that. That was just kind of like a bullet point of like, hey, here's something that we could really do if we're in an extreme situation. The SRX thing actually did happen. And the thing about SRX is you compared it to like NFL and the XFL. I wouldn't even say that. It kind of felt more like if it was the NFL going after like your local flag football organization or something. Like, the SRX was great. It got great viewership. The threats became when the Cup Series drivers were going into the SRX to go compete there, and when broadcast partners like ESPN and CBS were getting really good viewership. That's where the threat came from, or what they perceived as a threat. But at the same time, it was never, I don't feel like, going to be bigger than NASCAR, because it wasn't supposed to be like NASCAR. It was supposed to be like IROC. It's supposed to be the International Race of Champions. And as Michael Massey, this is Michael Massey's words, not mine, but it was like a retirement home. Like, it was all these drivers that have, retired for a long time. Willie T. Ribbs, when was the last time you heard of him outside of the Netflix documentary? Like, he came in and he competed, and he didn't do very well either. So it's like all these guys, really older gentlemen, coming in and racing again. It was cool. It was never really meant to compete against NASCAR. So I thought that was a little crazy, not to mention the fact that It was on local dirt tracks that NASCAR would never be able to compete at a cup race on. It was such a lower level that I don't even know. It upsets me that it wasn't really considered to be partnered with. It was rather just they saw it after Chase Elliott competed in the series, and they thought, "Oh, this has to go. This is a competitor," rather than wanting to partner up with it.
That would be like the NFL suing EC Glass or Nelson County because the G that those schools use may be different in color coordination, but looks very similar to the Green Bay Packers G. It's like, really, we're wasting our time on that.
Mhm.
That's a great analogy, Dalton, that you gave to us here in the fast lane. So because of that, is this the end of NASCAR operating as a benevolent dictatorship?
Benevolent dictatorship. I like that. I don't know. I don't. Yeah. I mean, look. I don't know if you could really call it a benevolent dictatorship. The dictatorship part of NASCAR ended as soon as they began the charter deal. As soon as they began the charter system in 2015, they started negotiating it. It was that ended right there because since then the teams now have a say, which is why this whole trial began in the first place. So I don't think that the dictatorship part is still there, but I will say that perhaps the fist that maybe the France family had on NASCAR, the fist that they had, the grip has kind of loosened just a little bit because maybe on the emotional side, the financial side, I think it's still there. I think they still have the power there, of course, but in the executive side, the governance side, they still have the power, but there is maybe an emotional side of saying, "Hey, we just got some pushback and for all basically lost because they couldn't get the outright win, and at the end of the day they had to pay the teams more money now and they gave them their permanent charters, so they just got some pushback and they lost that fight. So from moving on, if the teams say they want something, they might listen just a little bit more.
As far as NASCAR going forward in this particular lawsuit, can people in Martinsville and maybe Richmond more because it's a more valuable area for land, can they exhale that NASCAR's not going to have to divest its assets and therefore those tracks, at least in the near term, it doesn't look like they're going to be sold anytime soon?
I don't. You can exhale a lot more. Maybe not all the way, but because who knows what the future brings. But as far as selling tracks, no, it doesn't look like NASCAR's gonna have to do any of that.
Awesome. Other things that we can look forward to in the future when it comes to NASCAR. The entry point for ownership in most professional organizations. The NHL may be different, but we've seen the NBA with the sale of the Lakers and the Celtics recently. Obviously, the NFL, everything is worth the most there. Even in Major League Baseball, they're high because now these charters are deemed evergreen, which is basically the equivalent of permanent franchises coming to NASCAR. Does that mean that you're going to see a lot more business entities and maybe business individuals wanting to invest in ownership in NASCAR because the entry point is a lot lower than it is in other sports?
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday, also on the Frontstretch podcast network. We mentioned Dale Earnhardt Jr. And the fact that it's no secret that Dale Earnhardt Jr. wants to own a charter and wants to go full-time cup racing with his Xfinity team, or now O'Reilly Auto Parts team. It's going to take a long time for me to get used to that. To enter the Cup Series full-time, which would have been great for the sport because he's Dale Earnhardt Jr., right? He's NASCAR Jesus. But the problem was the charters were so expensive. Well, now that they're permanent charters, they're going to be way more expensive than they were before. On the other hand, now it seems like the charters might actually be a little bit more beneficial financially. You have less risk of losing the amount that you first invested in. And for one, and for two, it also makes you a lot more attracted to sponsors. So because the sponsor's going to want to sign on with your race team, knowing that you have a permanent charter, like instead of having to not sure if you're going to have that charter in 7 or 8 years or so, like it was before. So along the lines of, like, say, Dale Earnhardt Jr. or a business partner that you're mentioning, wanting to come in and perhaps take some kind of part ownership with a current charter. Sorry, we're not calling it a franchise yet. A current charter. That's a lot. I feel like that might be a little bit more likely just because of the attractiveness of the charter, because it's not a charter anymore. It's basically a franchise.
Good point from Dalton Hopkins of Frontstretch.com, who has made many of those and has joined us today here in the Fast Lane. couple more to wrap up, Dalton. We are grateful for your time. The flip side of more, concrete values in NASCAR conceding. Does it also mean NASCAR will start expending more on things like investing in the quality of the race car and getting more creative with the tracks because teams demanded? Will we see more changes as opposed to NASCAR waiting until the last second? Because why break precedent when you have power, and breaking precedent could threaten that power?
I think the development of race cars and tracks is probably going to remain around the same as it is right now, if not actually maybe decrease, just because of the fact that they're going to have less money to put into it. And although the teams might actually be able to help out with that because they're going to have a little bit of the IP revenue now. I think it's a third of the IP revenue is what the deal was leaked as. So maybe the teams will have some kind of hand in that also, and they can help out with that, which could be a good thing. But when it comes to the actual development of the next gen car or track development and so on and so forth, I got to imagine I don't really see if that's going to really make a huge change at the end of this.
Last one, I promise. Dalton Hopkins of Frontstretch.com. Last one on the NASCAR situation. Danny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, 2311 in front row, suing NASCAR. Does the interest in this lawsuit show that NASCAR is really damaged? Or does it show that there's still an undercurrent of people who, even though they've grown disgusted with the France family and the way NASCAR has operated over the better part of the last couple of decades, they still at their core care about the sport, want it to thrive, and would be willing to give it a chance?
I believe that NASCAR is a core fan base that's not going to be lost without something terrible happening. If you look at the ratings, there has been a steady decline, of course, over the years, but in the last few years, I feel like it's kind of evened out quite a bit. And I think we've kind of reached that point where we're at the core fan base. But you look at what just happened, look at NASCAR. It kind of feels like maybe a turning point for people, for me on the media side of things, for fans. And at the end, and of course, look at who was a part of the plaintiff side. That was Michael Jordan. Be like Mike. They're playing Be Like Mike outside of the courthouse. He was involved in a lawsuit against NASCAR. Now, look, that's ugly. It's an ugly sentence to say, right? But at the same time, like, you put Michael Jordan in the same sense as NASCAR and put it on same sentence as NASCAR and put it on a headline. That's eyeballs. That's eyeballs right there. That's interest. So I think there is some silver linings here when it comes to the end of all of this, and people now I feel like are a little bit more aware that Michael Jordan's actually involved in NASCAR in some way, shape, or form.
That's a good thing in that sense. It's always good to get the insight of Dalton Hopkins of Frontstretch.com. Dalton, we wrap it up today by telling you, while you will probably be listening on the VTR and Sports app to Army Navy tomorrow, it'll be a warring faction in my house with a portion supporting Navy and a portion supporting Army.
Go Army, beat Navy.
My wife thanks you, even if it pains me. And so you win the most important vote, which is my wife. So congratulations on that. Dalton, thank you for your time. Congratulations on the work. Get some rest and enjoy the game tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Ed. I can't wait to be a nervous wreck tomorrow afternoon.
Indeed. Dalton Hopkins with us here in the fast lane. He serves our country in the Army, so hence the Go Army, beat Navy. When we return, football, different kind, NFL. Game one of our triple header on Sunday features the man who will be on the call, Marvin Lewis, Sports USA analyst and former coach, slated to step into the fast lane next.
Down to savings during the Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
Hi, Danny from Gibbons Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
More than 200 members of Congress are standing up for AM radio listeners. The AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act will keep AM radio in cars, because when cell and internet services are down, this free service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 39179. Tell Congress to pass this critical legislation now.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Our TroySwallow.com Fast Take comes your way from the Forest Youth Athletic Association complexes, where you can have good mentors for your children, help them to become responsible adults. But if you're going to fault college athletics at a big-time level, don't fault the players. You can't get on them for leaving for better opportunities, especially at the end of the year, when you got coaches like Lane Kiffin leaving in the middle of a playoff run and are supposedly advised to do so by mentors like Nick Saban and Pete Carroll. If you're going to fault the players, you have to fault the coaches too.
We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings and great discounts. Now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com, when you use promo code Christmas, that's promo code Christmas at checkout, get 24% off all items at InsaneRadioDeals.com, including gift cards to the Yard on 5th Street, downtown Cairo, Oliver's on Rivermont, and much more. 24% off all items when you use promo code Christmas at checkout now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
Do you want to experience the benefit of radio and digital advertising for your business, but have no or limited funds to advertise? Let us tell you about InsaneRadioDeals.com. No cash needed. We will advertise your business on our 8 over-the-air AM and FM stations and our digital platforms that distribute out news talk, sports, and classic hits in exchange for gift cards, tickets, or experiences that will be used for your business. This allows you to advertise across the entire Virginia Talk Radio network without any cash needed and to generate a large amount of new business. Last year, we started over 900,000 streams on our online platforms, so VTRN and InsaneRadioDeals.com is the place where your business gets heard. Want to learn more? Call Melinda 434-534-8500 or email info@VirginiaTalkRadioNetwork.com.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
So we're blessed that that we've had really good streaming numbers and really good audio numbers throughout this NFL season. Not just thanks to our play-by-play coverage, but also the great content just discussing football, whether it's the morning warm-up, the Fast Lane, or the other great content we have right here on VTRN Sports and the VTRN Sports app. A lot of that, I would think, is because just generally speaking, the idea of competitive excellence in the NFL is centered around every fan base having a level of hope. And I use the beep out because, for fans, it's fine. In terms of a raw game plan, you can't just operate on hope. You got to have a little bit more than that. But this is as wide open an NFL season in terms of who might be the favorites for the Super Bowl, even with the top, not one, but 2 teams being the Rams and the Seahawks. It still seems like there are a number of teams, particularly in the AFC, which for the better part of the last decade has been Mahomes, Reed, and the Chiefs, or Brady and the Patriots, and you could throw his years in Tampa in there as well. This is wide open as it's been. Now, does Marvin Lewis agree with us or disagree? We get his perspective. He will ironically be seeing the Patriots 12:30 airtime this coming Sunday, game one of our NFL triple header as the Bills get ready to battle the New England Patriots. Marvin Lewis joining us in the Fast Lane. Coach, thank you for making time for us. We're grateful for it. When was the last time you've seen an NFL stretch run where it's been as wide open as it seems to be right now?
Yeah, I really think it's been a while. There's really been no clear fit we've had over the last few years with, basically the Chiefs dominating, but, there was always another up and comer from another division, whether it been the Bills, whether it been the Bengals, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, whatever. And this year, it seems like it's wide open, and we have some new teams. The Bears playing very good football, and and Detroit still playing pretty well. Tampa loses 2 in a row now, so they come back to the field, and Carolina's surging. So it's been an interesting. You mentioned the Texans, and we did the Texans earlier when they got on their win streak, and how good they've been playing, and that defense is playing lights out.
You mentioned the overall element to this, particularly the AFC. How much will Sunday's game is probably a good way to start because it's game one of our triple header. It's the game you're calling for Sports USA as Marvin Lewis is with us here in the Fast Lane. But how much is Sunday's game a real clarity-defining game in the sense that if New England wins and sweeps Buffalo, all of a sudden they could announce themselves as being part of that challenger group, whereas if Buffalo wins, maybe people go, all right, Josh Allen and the Bills are figuring this out, and their pedigree puts them at the top of the favorite board.
There's no question about it that, the winner, if the Patriots win this football game, they're in the driver's seat, obviously, and have a great opportunity to get home field throughout. But, we saw the Colts 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they looked invincible when they beat the Chargers. So, like you said, there's a lot of parity right now within the National Football League. That's always, I think, what people wanted. The teams with the quarterbacks still have an opportunity to really make a run, and they just have to settle down and play a little better defense. But when you have a quarterback, you have a chance.
What has enabled Drake May, the former North Carolina star, to take the jump in year one to year two is not just a quarterback that looks like a franchise caliber quarterback, but one that's been in the MVP discussion in his second year?
Well, he really has, and he's done a nice job getting the ball out of his hands. He slides and moves in the pocket when he can. If he has to run for a first down, he's a tremendous athlete. And so he's been able to extend some drives by running for first downs, and he hasn't made the big mistakes. And that's the thing that, going down this stretch, I'm sure that's what they're hoping. And I think Josh McDaniels has had an impact, the way he's calling the game and keeping the game within Drake May's ability. They're not, they ask him to make all the throws, but they don't ask him to throw it around the lot. And they do a great job running the football and working the play action off of that. They're really good at tight end with Hunter Henry. They're good with Diggs and what they do, getting the ball in these receivers' hands and letting them run after the catch.
Marvin Lewis with us here in the Fast Lane. He'll be on the call for Sports USA. It's going to be game one of our NFL triple header this coming Sunday. Buffalo at Drake May, the North Carolina star, and the New England Patriots. These year one to year two transitions for quarterbacks. Caleb Williams has made the jump with the new coach. So too is Drake May. Bo Nix has succeeded again in the second year with Sean Payton. Is that the biggest jump year and growth year for a quarterback, year one to year two in the NFL?
I really think it is. I think it's an opportunity once they got their feet wet as rookies and to sit back and analyze what they did, how they did it, and then go in and attack year two. And I think they become more leaders as far as their football team, and particularly their offensive football team, no question. But they're able to go in and attack it, and they do a good job. I think the coaches have a good feel for what they like and what they do best. And so they're able to expand upon that as they put together the game plans.
Marvin Lewis with us here in the Fast Lane. The opposite of that are quarterbacks that have regressed or struggled, might be a better way. It may not be they're not as talented, but the most glaring example is in our backyard with Jaden Daniels. Was it almost impossible, and maybe that's too strong of a word, Was it really difficult? And was it always going to be really difficult for him to replicate the impact that he had, not just on the Commanders as a team, but the Commanders franchise with what they had gone through for the last couple of decades from year one to year two, trying to build off that?
The expectations were through the roof. But, I was around Jaden when he was a freshman at Arizona State in his early years there. I was there with him in the building. So nothing that Jaden does surprises me. And I don't think it was too much for him. I do think they were missing some players on offense, some of their playmakers. And so they had to, go in different directions, and things didn't work out. They haven't played nearly as well on defense. And, it's still a team effort. But, the way Jaden played last year and, his ability to run and extend drives and extend plays and score touchdowns, frankly, was amazing. This year his body got a little beat up. He'll come back bigger, stronger, and better again in 2026.
As somebody who's familiar with Jaden Daniels, you alluded to that from your time with him at Arizona State, where you were consulting a few years ago. What advice have you or would you give to Jaden Daniels in terms of how to go into year three and make sure year three is closer to year one than this past season?
Well, I think the biggest thing for him is just to reflect upon, everything he did in preparation, and don't assume just because he did it the first year, it's going to happen that way, in year three, and year two is, it wasn't a good year. And so just go back to work, put in the work, put in the opportunity, get with your teammates, make sure you continue to grow the relationships with your teammates. Because to me, that's the biggest thing, is for him to grow that rapport with his teammates in that building.
When you're looking at the NFL as well, and you've seen plenty of games, we've seen these ebbs and flows. CJ Stroud's an example. Year one was great. Year two was a struggle. Now he's back, has played well, and the Texans defense has been fantastic in year three. How much of the ability for quarterbacks to bounce back is the resiliency? Bryce Young in Carolina is another example. How much of it is having the right supporting cast? To what do you attribute these quarterbacks early in their career, young ones, being able to navigate the ups and downs of the NFL?
Well, my analogy with all of it, a lot of it is, first off, being able to put together a run game around them. I think playing good, sound defense around them, and then just the belief that the coaches, the coordinator, the play callers, as they build and put together the plan, the belief they have in their ability, and giving them confidence and driving them forward with confidence. To me, that's the thing, is they play the most difficult position in this sport, and they got to play it competently. They can't play with their tail between their legs.
That's a big thing to remember for a lot of these quarterbacks. Marvin Lewis with us here in the Fast Lane. Marvin, thank you for generously giving of your time today where we can connect with you. Looking forward to hearing you on the call this coming Sunday in New England and Foxborough. Have a great call, safety to and from the game, and we look forward to listening.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
It will. Game one of our triple-header this coming Sunday up in New England, featuring Drake May and the New England Patriots hosting the Buffalo Bills. After that, it'll be Green Bay at Denver is our late afternoon game. And then, of course, Sunday Night Football to follow on VTR and Sports, your home for premier play-by-play. The other thing is a level of patience. There's an ebbs and flows in the NFL. Bryce Young may be the best example. I mean, people were ready to write him off as a total bust. I do think they benefited from the NFC South being a relatively weak division that has early Saturday wild card round or opening round playoff written all over it. Whoever ends up winning that division, or whoever ends up winning the AFC South, it's going to be one of those teams in your early slots, depending on who they end up drawing. Because there's been some luck element that's gone into it, sure. But give the Panthers credit. They are clearly a flawed team, particularly against the upper echelon. But hanging in there is an underrated art and an underrated skill. Meanwhile, thank you for hanging in there with us this week in the Fast Lane with our quirky schedules, all the coverage we've had. If you've missed it, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're back Monday, 5 to 6 p.m., covering the Commonwealth with your teams and topics. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on VTR and Sports 93.3.